Thank you all for being here for this special and important occasion. Director General Bootsile, it's a pleasure to be with you virtually today. I look forward to meeting with you in person as we build out the collaboration we're announcing today. With the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding, we are committing to you a mutually beneficial relationship between the Danish Energy Agency and the North Carolina Department of Commerce as the department works to support the responsible development of offshore wind in North Carolina. Through this relationship, North Carolina will benefit from the knowledge, data, and best practices accumulated by the Danish Energy Agency over more than 30 years of breakthrough work in the development and implementation of offshore wind. Denmark is a global pioneer of offshore wind as the first country in the world to install an offshore wind farm back in 1991. Today, nearly half of the electricity produced in Denmark comes from wind turbines both on and offshore. We applaud your global leadership and we are deeply grateful for your partnership. The MOU comes at an exciting time for North Carolina as we work to transition our state to a clean energy economy. We have ambitious goals for North Carolina, goals that are grounded in our commitment to sustaining a clean environment for all North Carolinians to live, learn, and work. Just as Denmark has a goal of a 70% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, North Carolina has similar goal under bipartisan leadership enacted in 2021. House Bill 951 calls for a 70% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions from the energy sector by 2030. And it calls for carbon neutrality from the energy sector by energy production by 2050. Governor Cooper's Executive Order 218 established North Carolina's offshore wind development goals of 2.8 gigawatts by 2030 and 8 gigawatts by 2040. 8 gigawatts is enough power to power more than 2.3 million homes across our state. North Carolina is on track to meet these goals with 3 offshore wind projects under development 20 miles or more off the coast of our state. And these goals support our Department of Commerce's mission to improve the economic well-being and quality of life of all North Carolinians. That's because economic development and environmental stewardship go hand in hand in the transition to a clean energy economy. The offshore wind energy and its supply chain represent a potential of $100 billion in economic investments across North Carolina, tens of thousands of family-sustaining jobs for North Carolinians, and clean, renewable energy to power hundreds of thousands of North Carolina homes and businesses. And North Carolina has some significant advantages when it comes to offshore wind. We have the greatest potential for offshore wind power generation of any state on the East Coast. That's thanks to a long coastline, high offshore wind levels, and shallow water depths in the federal waters off our coast. Our central location on the East Coast means we support and are responsible for the development of offshore wind up and down the entire eastern seaboard by supplying parts manufactured in North Carolina as well as maritime support. And North Carolina has the largest manufacturing presence on the East Coast and the highly skilled, diverse workforce to support it. Our state has the largest manufacturing workforce in the Southeast with more than 455,000 manufacturing employees. North Carolina is fortunate to be entering the offshore wind market at this time when we can benefit from all the knowledge and experience of global wind leaders like Denmark. Over the past 40 years, Denmark has progressed from dependent entirely on imported fossil fuels to generating nearly 70% of its electricity from renewable sources like wind energy. Offshore wind is what I like to call a win-win. It's good for the people, it's good for our environment, and it's good for businesses. Director General, on behalf of the North Carolina Department of Commerce and the citizens and residents who we serve, I thank you and the Danish Energy Agency team for your commitment to helping others around the world make a transition to clean energy. With partners like you, North Carolina is on its right track to succeed in the responsible development of offshore wind and to transition to clean energy, a clean energy economy, one that benefits all residents of North Carolina. Thank you for your partnership.
Thank you so much. First of all, it's so great to meet you, Secretary Michelle Baker-Sanders. It's a pleasure to start this hopefully fruitful and certainly important collaboration between our agencies. Our collaboration hopes to inspire dialogues and knowledge sharing in both directions. And we are glad to embark on this journey today. I believe that the reason we will be successful in this collaboration is that North Carolina and Denmark has a lot in common. Not only are we open to new ideas and inspiration from others, we are also frontrunners in having extremely ambitious targets on climate and energy. The green transition is accelerating, and both our goals have increased over the last couple of years. In 2022, North Carolina set the ambitious goal of 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and net zero emissions as soon as possible and no later than by 2050 by issuing Executive Order number 246. And our goals in Denmark have been set at 70% emission reductions by 2030 and 100% green electricity by 2030 as well. And 100% climate neutrality by 2045 and 110% emission reductions by 2050. Over the next decade, both our agencies will play a leading role in the development of offshore wind while ensuring a well-educated workforce and job creation. On top of this comes the integration of new technologies such as green hydrogen and CCUS, which today seems like some of the key components for achieving a carbon neutral energy mix across all sectors. Implementing these new energy solutions on a large scale is not an easy task, let alone regulating it. This is uncharted territory for us all. Both our agencies have to implement long-term commitments to reach our climate, energy, and decarbonization targets. And at the same time, we must deliver short and mid-term action. This means that we are facing some of the same challenges in integrating renewables such as large-scale offshore wind, supporting electrification and decarbonization of our energy systems. This is where I believe it is obvious to collaborate across countries and governments to learn from each other, to identify best practices and regulation, and to speed up the green energy transition. Finally, I know that your team is planning with my team on going to Denmark in April. This is excellent, but I would also use this opportunity to personally invite you, Secretary Baker-Sanders, to Denmark to experience what it looks like in a country where we have been building offshore wind farms for more than 30 years. And if you come, I would like to show you the port of Esbjerg, which is a power hub for offshore wind in Europe, which is serving all sides of the North Sea today. We can also visit an offshore wind farm in full production, or we can visit some of the factories where the big turbines are being produced today. And with these words, I will be happy to turn to our signing of the MOUs. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Er det ikke nu, I skal klappe? Wow.